Welcome back to the His and Her Money Show with America's #1 money couple. I'm Talaat.
And I'm Tai, and we're from hisandhermoney.com, where we're managing money, marriage, and everything in between.
We're excited for this episode, and we're excited to have you here watching this episode. We have a special guest from the Dave Ramsey personality team by the name of Christy Wright. And she is a business coach and she is a business expert. And she has released a brand new book called The Business Boutique. And she's going to share some of her wisdom and insight on how to be successful when it comes to entrepreneurship.
So make sure that you grab a pencil and some paper and let's start taking notes.
Hey, Christy, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, Christy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're super honored to have you here with us. You just released an awesome new book called The Business Boutique, and it's going to help so many people around the world. And so we're super glad to have you on the show today. For those that are listening that are not familiar with you, can you go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourself to the audience and let them know what you're all about?
Absolutely, I would love to. Thank you. Well, I am a business coach, and I will tell you, it was growing up in my mom's little bakery from the time that I was 6 months old that really inspired me and gave me this heart for small business owners. And I have had a couple of side businesses myself early on in my career, in addition to my full-time job. And now, where I am working with Dave Ramsey's company and speaking all over the country, I've really noticed there is a need to help women start side and small businesses. And there are so many women that are unbelievably talented, highly educated, very skilled and passionate about things in their lives where they want to earn money on their own terms, but they get overwhelmed with the business side of things. And they get overwhelmed with things like taxes and pricing and trademarks and business licenses. And they get overwhelmed. And what happens is they want to give up. And so they give up on their dream or their idea or their little hobby that was going to become a business. And I like to come alongside them and help them turn that idea into income. Because the truth is, the business side of things is not that bad. You just need help. You really just need a plan. And so that's what this book is. It is a step-by-step plan to give women everything they need to start, run, and grow their businesses. And it's a really fun time because we're seeing about 40 million Americans working as freelancers or independent workers. So there has never been a better time to start your own business, and I like to help women do that.
Of everything business, yeah. So can you talk about the concept behind the title of you naming the book The Business Boutique?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I found in my research is that the term that women identify with is all over the board. So I asked women, do you identify with micro business or mompreneur or hobby business or small business or home-based business? And y'all, it's amazing because the results were evenly split for every single term. And so depending on where women are in the process, if they're early on and they're just dreaming of an idea, all the way through if they're running a small business, varies greatly. Their confidence varies greatly depending on where they are on the spectrum and how far along they are in the process. So women running small businesses think of a word like mompreneur and they're like, no, I mean, I'm not a mompreneur. Like, this is a real legitimate small business. Like, they're kind of offended at that term. And then you see women that are early on and they say small business. Oh, no, this isn't a small business. Like, this is just this little hobby I have. And so what we found is it's very difficult to identify a term that encapsulates all of that. And so I really came up with the name The Business Boutique, where that's what we are. We are the place that you come for all things business. And so we are equipping women to make money doing what they love. Regardless of your stage of business, we have what you need to win.
So, Christy, can you tell us, where did this entrepreneurship journey start for you? How was it birthed into your life?
Well, it's interesting. I've always had a love of business. And like I said, it was my mom starting a little cake shop when I was 6 months old to raise and support me that really inspired me to love business. So I got a degree in business and then started my own small businesses, side businesses to help supplement my income early in my 20s. But I honestly think I've always been very entrepreneurial by nature. I have 100 ideas a day of new businesses and new ideas I want to start. And so I'm kind of wired that way. But I will say that my story and watching my mom grow her business from the ground up is what kind of gave me this passion to help other women do the exact same thing.
So there are a lot of people that have the desire to start a business. They have a dream to start a business, but it feels overwhelming to them. How do they push back that overwhelmed feeling?
I will tell you, if these people that you're talking about, if they would just take one step, just one tiny step, what happens is we get overwhelmed because we think of all of the things we have to do. Oh my gosh, the list is unending. But here's the truth. If you just take one step, if you just check off one thing off your list, it will give you the momentum and the confidence to take the very next step. Because what I found is the overwhelm gets really big and your fear gets really big when you look at everything you have to do. But don't focus on all of that. You just focus on one step, and as you take one tiny baby step, it's kind of like the movies laugh about, just one baby step in front of the other. But it's amazing how that gives you the confidence to take the next step, and that gives you momentum, and it fuels your growth. But of course, anyone looking at a giant mountain would get overwhelmed by the mountain, but just focus on the one step in front of you, and that really will simplify things for you, because the story of the tortoise and the hare is very true. The tortoise always wins. It's the slow and steady wins the race. And so if you just take that tiny step, it really will help reduce that overwhelm and reduce the fear.
Absolutely. Now, you've been a businesswoman and a business coach for a number of years now. What are some of the challenges that are unique to women when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. Well, by nature, entrepreneurship is risky and it feels vulnerable. As we know, it's not just business, it's personal. Like, you're putting yourself on the line and your heart on the line and your dreams out there for the world to see and judge and evaluate and accept or reject. And so it can feel very, very risky. And what's interesting is research shows that as early as childhood, boys and girls exhibit different qualities when it comes to risk. For example, boys are much more of risk takers. Girls don't like to take risks. They actually studied in riding a bicycle that boys break far less often than girls. Girls break more frequently and faster than boys do. And it's interesting, too, when you look at how boys and girls approach mistakes, where girls never want to make the same mistake twice. And so they try to do everything perfect so they don't feel that pain of making a mistake. Whereas boys, they tend to attribute mistakes as bad luck. Maybe their luck will be better next time. And so it's funny how you see even as early as childhood, we are wired differently when it comes to risk and mistakes. And so when you look at that through the lens of entrepreneurship, girls or women are much more averse to risk and putting themselves out there. They don't want to make the same mistake twice. I'll give you an example. Years ago when I started speaking, just got started speaking professionally, I had a speaking event where I bombed. I mean, I completely panicked. It was awful, and it scarred me to the core. And my thought the whole way driving home was, never again. I'll never do that again. I'll never put myself out there to fail, to be rejected, to embarrass myself ever again. And thankfully, I changed my mind and have had a good speaking career since then. But I'm like many women where if we experience a failure or a setback, then we feel scared to ever do the thing again. And unfortunately, that's just a normal part of the entrepreneurial journey. When you are putting yourself out there in business, you will make mistakes, but that is part of the journey. And so if we realize that's normal, then you can do the thing anyway. You don't have to wait until you're not scared to do the thing you want to do. You just do it scared. And when you make a mistake or you have a failure, you just see that as an experiment. It's a normal part of the journey and you keep going anyway.
So any advice on how to balance it all? I mean, you're a mom, you're a business owner, you're a wife. How do you do it all at the same time?
It's very tricky because one of the things that I think I've learned and studied, even with life balance myself, is that it's not perfect and it's messy. And life balance is messy because life is messy. And so while we would love to have this perfect formula of here's what it should look like and here's exactly how you do it, that's just not realistic. I will tell you a couple tips that I've learned and practiced in my own life to help me experience a greater sense of balance. One thing that I do is I only spend time on things that are important to me. When you think about it, your time is the most finite resource that you have. You have exactly 24 hours in a day. So you can get more money, more relationships, you can buy more stuff, you can have more friends, you can get more of anything in this life except your time. And when you realize that as this incredibly valuable resource, then you can become much more protective and selective with your time. We women, we tend to be people pleasers, which means we say yes when what we really mean is no. And we end up saying yes to things that we end up resenting and regretting later. And when we say yes in all these places that are not important to us, it's taking away valuable time from things that are. And so I'll tell you, I've gotten very protective over my time. I say no a lot. And I've gotten over this guilt of saying no, because what happens is I spend my time, my very limited, precious time, like all of us have, only on things that are important to me. And what I found is when you start to align your time with only those things that are really important to you, then you can be crazy busy, but you feel that sense of balance, because it's not that you're doing too many things, it's that you're doing the right things. And I really think that's the key to creating balance in your life. It's not about doing, having a perfect split between work and home or doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time.
Absolutely. You've had a ton of success in business. I mean, you're part of Dave Ramsey's team. You're on stages across the country helping thousands, maybe even millions of women across the country. And it's probably easy for us to say, wow, man, she's awesome. She made it. But looking back, were there any mistakes that you made in business? And if so, what were some lessons that you took away from it?
Absolutely. Well, I gave you the one example of failing in speaking, but I will tell you that I used to think that failure was a sign that you shouldn't do something. I told you, driving home from that event, I said, oh, I'll never do this again. I must not be cut out to be a speaker. This is not what I'm supposed to do. So when I started realizing that failures are not a sign that you're doing something wrong, it's just a normal part of the journey. And fear doesn't mean that you're doing something bad. It just means you're doing something bold. Then it allows me to step back on the stage anyway, even if I'm scared, even if I might fail again, even if it's not perfect. That I just realized that fear is a normal part of the journey. And so once I really understood that fear is going to accompany me at every level of success, then I was able to be bolder and braver and put myself out there more. But I will tell you, there were years that fear held me back. There were things that I didn't do. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't step out and take a chance on because I thought, oh, I'm scared. That must be a red flag. That must mean I shouldn't do this thing. So that's definitely been a big mistake, was letting fear hold me back from doing those things that I maybe could have done. I could have at least tried and learned from that experience. I will tell you the other thing is just, and this took some maturing in my life, but I used to think that everything in my life was a result of my ability to work hard. I have two very hardworking parents, and I think that working hard is very important, but no one is a self-made man. Every success happens in community. You are a result of the people that have poured into you, that love on you, that have breathed life into you, that have taught you and led you well. And so when I started leveraging and leaning into and appreciating all of the unbelievable relationships around me, I realized that we are all a success together. And so there for a while, I was always trying to bootstrap it. Entrepreneurs are like this. We're just going to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're just going to make it happen some way. And those are great qualities. But you really need excellent people around you. And so I would just encourage your viewers and your listeners to surround yourself with great people that are smarter than you, that are wiser than you, that are braver than you, that have more experience than you have, and allow them to speak into your life. And it's amazing how you will go further and faster when you are surrounded by really great people.
That's great advice. So who are some people that have influenced you most in your business, and what have they taught you along the way?
Well, certainly my mom, and this is going to come as no surprise with just growing up in the business, but my mom was a single mom, and I was an only child. And so we were more like best friends or sisters than mother and daughter. And we made each other laugh, and we drove each other crazy. But watching her has been everything that's shaped me. And one of the pieces of encouragement I would have for your listeners, both men and women, is don't be sorry for the struggle. Because if you look back at my childhood, there were times that she would pull me out of bed at 2 and 3 in the morning and wrap me in blankets and take me down to the bakery to bake. And you might look back at that and go, oh, what a terrible childhood. This is not a Pinterest perfect childhood with everything matching and insulated in this perfect bubble, to put on Facebook. But what's so incredible is looking back, my story of maybe, some things that we went without, or some things that we learned the hard way, or some things that were a struggle, like when we got a flat tire in the rain and it was just her and I trying to figure it out. Or when we went down to the cake shop one morning at 4 a.m. and her cake shop had been broken into. When you look at some of these stories, you might think, oh man, that's a really tough time. I made it despite that. No, I made it because of that. It was the struggle that made me. And it's incredible to look back and see how my mom's story of perseverance is my story of perseverance. And so my mom didn't teach me work ethic and character and values and integrity. She lived it. And as a result, I live it as well. So I just would encourage your listeners and viewers to never be sorry for the struggle. Who you are as a person is more than enough for your children. And you working hard is not going to harm them. It's going to help them as they watch you persevere. So certainly my mom. And then, of course, this will come as no surprise, but Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey took a chance on me. I did not come into this company as a speaker or a teacher or an author. He has been so generous with his platform to share his stage with me, to share the spotlight and the platform and the radio with me, and give me a chance to test out my voice, to test out my sea legs, to try some of this content and try to make an impact on people. And it's working. But it doesn't matter how talented I am. It doesn't matter how much God has given me the words to breathe life into people. If someone doesn't give you a chance, someone doesn't share those opportunities with you, then no one can hear it. And so certainly Dave Ramsey and the model that he set of generosity, but he's also just a really outstanding leader to be led by and learn from.
Awesome. Now in business, you're going to have to sell something, whether you're selling yourself as an expert or you're selling a product or service. And for everybody, that's not something, a skill set that comes naturally. So how do you advise people go about the process of getting better at sales?
Well, that's a great question. And I run into this all the time in women that I coach, because many of us have a certain idea about sales. So maybe we were burned by a pushy salesperson at one time or another. And that's framed this idea in our head that sales is pushy. Sales is aggressive. Sales is taking advantage of someone else. Or maybe even just the idea that sales is a certain personality style. You have to be super extroverted and outgoing to be good at sales. But none of those things are true. So I would just like to give you some tips on how to reframe sales so that you can sell and feel confident about it. For one, sales is just influence. That's all it is. So it's really influencing those around you. And all of us, to your point, are in sales. Even if you're not in business, you're in sales. So are you married? Great. That means you convince someone to spend the rest of their life with you. That's a big sale. Did your kids eat dinner last night? That's a big sale. You convince them to eat their veggies. Do you have a close friend? You convince someone to let you into their inner circle. Those are all big sales. And so when we realize it's just the business of influencing others, then it doesn't have to seem so scary. It doesn't have to seem so overwhelming. And when I did research for years on women with businesses, and I asked them how they felt about sales, many of them said exactly what you said. They said, I don't want to be pushy. I just don't want to get on people's nerves. I don't want to annoy them. Then about maybe 10 minutes later in the interview, when I asked them, well, why do you love this business? What does it do for you? Why does it matter to you? Y'all, they poured over sharing their heart and their story. They said things like, a photographer said to me, I love capturing people's special day, whether that's a wedding day or, newborn photos. I love capturing these moments and memories that people will treasure for the rest of their lives. I remember talking to one woman that made handmade dresses. And she said, I love seeing little girls in the church lobby twirl around in the dresses I made. Y'all, as they shared their heart and shared their story, I wanted to buy from them right then. That's what the best sales are. It doesn't have to be pushing. It can really just be sharing your heart and sharing your story. And when you do that, you can sell in a way that is authentic to you. You don't have to be super extroverted. You can be steady, and you can even be the quiet type. But as you share your heart and influence others, the sale will naturally follow.
So now you teach the importance of focus in business. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, I will tell you, as women, we are very proud multitaskers. Like, we are just so proud of the fact that we can do so many things at one time. It's amazing. I heard someone give the analogy one time that women's brains are like spaghetti with all these things intertwined, and men's are more like waffles with every compartment separate. Now, I don't know how scientific this analogy is about the spaghetti and the waffle, but I'll say for myself, it's very easy to think about a lot of things at one time. But the truth is, and research shows this, your brain is not capable of giving attention to more than one thing at a time. It's just the reality. So I encourage people, women specifically in business, if you want to multitask, that's fine, but multitask the right way. And the right way to do that is give your attention to one thing at a time, and you can have other things going on that don't require your attention. So for example, if you're working from home, you can have the laundry going, you can have dinner in the crock pot, and you can be working on your invoices. But two of those things don't require your attention. So have you ever had to have a conversation with someone or tried to have a conversation with someone while they're texting? They're not listening, right? Because we can't give our attention in two places. You don't want to be trying to help your child with their homework while also working on your taxes. One of those things is going to slip. And so the truth is we can multitask, but only when one activity requires our attention at the time. And that allows you to have focus on whatever you're working on. So I really encourage women also to set working hours. What are your hours? And then focus on your work. And then when you're there, work and get it done. And when you're not there, be off work. Step out of that space, clock out, but treat it like a real job. And you'll be more productive if you do.
Let's talk about the financials of entrepreneurship for a moment. A question that comes across our inbox on several occasions is, I have this business idea, but it's going to cost some money. So, should I finance it? Should I save up for it? What's your advice on financing entrepreneurial endeavors versus cash flowing entrepreneurial endeavors?
Now you know what I'm gonna say here.
Well, I'm gonna just see. I'm just putting it out there for you, Christy.
I'm like,
I'm gonna just put it out there, Christy.
Let me just break it down about business debt, because this is a great question. Somehow people have this idea in the business world that business debt is different. Like, it's not your debt, it's the business's debt. The business can pay for it. Here's the thing, it's all your debt. Because at the end of the day, someone has to pay those bills, and that someone is you. And so the truth is, we recommend that you never take out debt for any reason. All debt is risk, and it's all a bad idea, whether it's businesses or personal debt. And so the truth is, you can start your business very small, and you can grow slow. You can get incredibly creative to bypass a lot of startup costs to save you that money. The truth is, Dave Ramsey's business that now has 600 team members started on a card table in his living room. Now, I know it's not super impressive to sell books out of the trunk of your car when you're getting started, but that's how he got started. And as you grow, you maintain all of the power, all of the control, and all of the money, because you didn't leverage that on the front end and put yourself in a bad situation with that type of risk. So I recommend to people, start small, grow slow as you're able to cash flow things. And you can even get really creative on the front end. Maybe you barter for space, or you do some type of trade, or you sublease during a different, maybe there's a business space that you can sublease their hours when they're not working, or they're not in business. And you can be really creative as you're getting started and as you're getting some cash flow going, and then grow and expand as the business justifies it. But I'll tell you one thing I've seen. It seems like to me, a lot of people getting started feel like they have to buy all this stuff, not because they really have to buy it, but because they want to justify it. Like, oh, I'm going to be a writer, so I need a new computer. No, you don't. Your old clunky desktop will write those words just fine. It's like when I graduated college and I needed all new suits to go interview for my job. No, I didn't. I had a perfectly great closet full of interview clothes. I just wanted to validate that I was getting a new job. And a lot of times business owners do that. They're like, I want to validate that I'm doing this thing. So I'm going to go buy a new computer and buy a new computer bag and go buy all this stuff. Here's the truth. Buying stuff doesn't validate your business. Sales does. So go make some sales.
That's the answer that we give. We are super duper debt averse, but we figured if we asked you and you said the same thing, they might believe us now.
Mm-hmm.
Drive it home.
So what has been the biggest lesson in life in general that you've learned during your entire entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I learned early on, and I think it is such a gift that I learned this, because it has affected not only my relationships and my family and my work, but it's affected even this idea of life balance, like you asked about a little bit ago. But I read something a while back where there was a nurse that actually took care, she was actually in Europe, and she took care of people on their deathbed. And as a result of this experience, years and years of caring for the dying, she wrote a book, and it's called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret from people on their deathbed is that they wish they didn't work so much, which has its own implications. But the number 2 regret is that they didn't live a life true to them. And if you think about it, those really go together, because if you're doing work you love, you probably don't regret working a lot if you love it. But 70% of people don't love the work that they do. And so when you look at this and you start to create a life that is true to you, not what your mom wanted or what your spouse wanted, but really reflects what you're proud of, then I think you can have a sense of life balance. And I think it's something that is a major life lesson that affects every decision you make. So I will say, for me, the biggest lesson that I've learned, that I've tried to implement in every area that I have, it affects where I say yes, where I say no, what relationships I allow in and which ones I don't, is just to live a life true to you. What are you gifted at? What do you love? What are you passionate about? What are your values? and not comparing those to everyone else, but what is that for you? And then as you start to create a life that reflects that, you can have that sense of balance and that sense of peace. And I would say probably later in life not have those same regrets of doing what you thought everyone else was doing or should have done or comparing yourself to others, but just living a life true to you and who you are.
No, there's a lot of people listening right now who have a desire to have some of the entrepreneurial success that you have had, but they also have a fear of their ability to do so. What words of encouragement would you offer to that person that's listening right now?
It's so interesting because fear is just, I would say, the number one thing that holds people back from starting businesses. It's just fear. And when I ask people, well, what are you scared of? All of them pause. They don't know. It's just fear. It's this scary monster under the bed. They're just scared. They haven't even pinpointed what they're scared of. And when we don't define it, then it can haunt us every step of the way. A lot of people are scared of failure. And one of the things that I encourage people, and we talked about this a little bit ago, but failure and fear are a normal part of the journey. If you're scared, it doesn't mean that you're doing something bad. It means you're doing something bold. But I used to think that fear was a red flag. Maybe you shouldn't do this thing. But I started to realize that fear is actually normal. Even incredibly successful people get scared. And so when you realize that you aren't going to outgrow it and you aren't going to outperform it, that fear is going to be with you, then you don't have to wait until you're not scared to do the thing you want to do. You just do it scared. There's actually something called the imposter syndrome you may be familiar with, but researchers coined this term in the 70s to talk about this syndrome where people suffer from this belief that they don't deserve their achievements. They don't deserve to be there. This is the voice that says, who are you? Who are you to do this? Who are you to have this podcast or teach people or launch this blog? Who do you think you are? And it's incredible when you look at, there's even really successful people like Maya Angelou, Kate Winslet that have talked about, Kate Winslet talks about going to a shoot and thinking, oh, they're going to find me out. They're going to kick me out of here. I don't deserve to be here. This is award-winning actress. Or Maya Angelou, she talks about, oh, I've written 11 books, and every time I think, oh, they're going to find you out, you're a fraud. They're never going to let you write again. And so when you realize that even really successful people are scared, then you can just do it anyway. We're in good company if even successful people are. And failure, I know it's scary and it's not fun. I don't desire to fail. But when you realize that's a normal part of the journey, then you can pick yourself up a little easier. For example, Michael Jordan, who is arguably the greatest basketball player of all time.
There's no argument, Christy. He is.
I know. Okay, no argument. He is. He is quoted as saying, he said, I have missed more than 300 shots in my 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost more than 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed. Babe Ruth was known as the home run king. He was also known as the strikeout king. And so you can't be one without the other. You can't succeed without failure along the way. And when you realize that, then failure is just one more step toward your journey of success.
Can you tell our audience more about your book, your podcast, and how they can stay connected with you?
Absolutely. So businessboutique.com is our website where we have all the information about the book and about the podcast. I love doing what you guys are doing, which is interviewing people and telling their stories and just encouraging them. We have a lot of the practical side of business, of steps and answers and solutions and tools that they need to win in business. And then we also have the encouragement and the inspiration. We tell stories of women winning in business at all different levels of success. So we do that through our podcast, and that certainly is all included in the book, Business Boutique, that comes out April 17th as well. And so that's where, cover to cover, I give them a step-by-step plan to start, run, and grow their business to the level that they want to. And it's really written specifically with this market in mind. It's not some high-level business theory book. It's just relatable stories and practical tips that guarantee if you do these things, you will win.
Christy, this has been awesome. You have given us a ton of value and advice that we can put to use right away. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show today.
Thank you, Christy.
Thanks so much for having me. I love being here.
Wow, that was fantastic. Christy shared so much wisdom. I think a lot of times people are scared to take that leap towards being a business owner because of lack of information.
So true.
And she just provided a ton of information. And there's a ton more in her new book, Business Boutiques. You can find the link to her new book, The Business Boutique, down below in the description box. We highly suggest that you all pick up a copy if you desire to be successful in your entrepreneurial endeavors.
All right, guys, if you want to find out more information, head over to our website at hisandhermoney.com.
Well, guys, that's all we got for this time. It's been great. Until next time, peace.
Bye.